Hi there, this is Patricia from patriciafenty.com, and today I have a tutorial on how to crochet a top-down beanie. It's a super easy pattern. It's suited for beginners, and I had started off doing the tutorial using this number 5 bulky yarn, but because of the colors, it was impossible to see the stitches. So instead, I used a number 4 medium weight yarn that I had in my stash, just in a simple gray color, so you can see the stitches. So you can make it either with a number 4 yarn or number 5 yarn. It's totally up to you. And I have the written directions for both size yarns in the description box below. And I would tell you as we go through the tutorial how to modify the pattern for each size yarn. Now this hat is slightly bigger than this one. That's because of the yarn weight. I'll talk more about that at the very end of the video. And then I'll also give you the option to make a youth size. Now the chunky weight yarn is the Bernat Wavelength yarn. The color is opal, and I got this at my local Walmart store in Canada. I can't find this online anywhere, so you can use any number 5 chunky or bulky weight yarn that you like. So it's a 5 bulky weight yarn, and it is 5 ounces or 140 grams, 100% acrylic. There's 223 yards or 204 meters. So any number 5 bulky yarn will work for this project. I'm using a 6.5 millimeter crochet hook for the body of the hat, and then a 6 millimeter for the brim. And you'll need some scissors and a darning needle. Now I will be demonstrating with the Bernat Premium yarn, and the color for this is soft gray heather. And then this is a number 4 medium weight yarn, and you can use any number 4 medium weight yarn you like. This one is 7 ounces or 198 grams, 360 yards or 329 meters. You'd probably get at least 3 hats out of this ball of yarn. And we are using a 6.5 millimeter crochet hook for the body of the hat, and then a 6 millimeter crochet hook for the brim. And then you'll need the scissors and a darning needle. Now the brim that I am going to be making for this hat is exactly the same as the ribbing used for the leg warmer tutorial. If you want to see how to do that, you can go to this point in the video. You can see how to do it with a lighter color yarn. So I'm starting with a 6.5 millimeter crochet hook, and if you're new to crochet, I do have my beginner crochet series, and I'll put a link to that below. Now we're going to start with a magic ring. So you'll place the yarn in your left hand, and you'll bring the yarn around and cross it over with one wrap going over the 3 fingers like that, and you can just pinch it there with your thumb to hold the tail in place. Flip your hand over, you'll have 2 strands on your 3 fingers. Bring the hook in under the first strand, grab the second strand and bring that in under the first strand, and then you're just going to do a twist just like that. And then you can pinch that with your thumb, and your tail will be to the right, and then you'll just do a chain 1, and that'll secure the ring. We're then going to do another chain, so you have a chain 2, and this does not count as a first stitch, and you kind of pull the tail through like that. So now we're going to do 12 double crochets into this ring, and if you're uncomfortable doing a magic ring, you can do a chain 5 and slip stitch that together to create a ring. So do a double crochet, yarn over, go into the ring, pull the yarn in from behind. You'll have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And that's your first double crochet. And you can push that over, and you can tighten up this ring just by pulling the tail just to make it a bit tighter so it's easier to crochet into. So again, we'll yarn over, go into the ring, pull the yarn from behind. You'll have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So you'll do a total of 12 double crochets into the ring, not including that beginning chain 2. So go ahead and do that, and I'll see you at the end. Welcome back. So there's 12 double crochets, and then here, I'll just pull this out, and you can just pull this tail here to tighten up the ring, just like that. And then you'll be darning this in. Now with magic rings, I always recommend doing a knot here and then darn in your tail ends, because magic rings have a bad habit of coming undone. If you did a chain 5, this hole will be bigger, but you can just use your tail end to close that up. So I have my 12 double crochets, and not including that beginning chain 2. So we're going to join into the top of the first double crochet. And what we're doing is, in crochet stitches, you have your top 2 stitches, that's your front loop and your back loop or top loop. And there's a third stitch that's not often used, and that's this back bump here. It's a little bit hard to get into, but that's the third part of the stitch, and we're going to be crocheting into that along with the back loop. So what we'll do here is we're going to join this round. You'll skip those first 2 chains, and you'll pick up the top loop and the back bump, and you'll slip stitch into that. So bring the yarn through those 2 stitches and the one on your hook, and you'll join every round in the same way. For round 2, we'll chain 2, and that does not count as your first double crochet. And then you'll do a double crochet back into that same stitch that you just joined into. So yarn over, going back into that same stitch, you'll do a double crochet. Then into the next stitch, you'll do 2 double crochets. So yarn over, go into that top loop and the back bump, and you kind of need your finger to slide that onto your hook and pull the yarn through, and you'll do 2 double crochets into that same stitch. So there's 1 and number 2. After a while, you'll get used to finding that back bump. So again, not this front loop, the top loop, yarn over, go into the top loop and that back bump, picking up those 2 stitches, and you'll do 2 double crochets into this stitch. And for the rest of this round, you'll do 1 double crochet into the next stitch, 2 double crochets into the next stitch, and 2 double crochets into the next stitch. And you'll repeat that all the way around till you get to the other side, and I'll see you there. So coming to the end of round 2, you should have finished your pattern repeat, which is 1 double crochet in 1 stitch, and then 2 double crochets, and then 2 double crochets. And you'll have a total of 20 double crochets all the way around. So again, we'll skip the first 2 chains, and going into the top of the first double crochet, you'll join with a slip stitch, again going under that top loop and the back bump, and do a slip stitch. Now for round 3, you'll chain 2, and again, this does not count as a stitch, and then you'll do a double crochet back into that same stitch that you came out of. So 1 double crochet into that same stitch. Then the next stitch, you'll do 2 double crochets into the same stitch, and again into the top loop and the back bump of each stitch. So do 2 double crochets into that one, and then into the next stitch, you'll do 1 double crochet. So this entire pattern is done crocheting into that top loop and back bump. And then into the next stitch, you'll do 2 double crochets. So that's the pattern repeat for this round. You'll do 1 double crochet in 1 stitch and 2 double crochets in the next stitch. So go ahead and do that, and I'll see you at the end. Now coming to the end of round 3, you'll have finished off with the repeat of 1 double crochet in one stitch and 2 double crochets in the last stitch, and you'll have a total of 30 double crochets all the way around. Now for round 4, again, you'll skip those beginning 2 chains and you're joining into the top loop and back bump of the first double crochet with a slip stitch. For round 4, we'll chain 2, and that does not count as a stitch, and you'll do 1 double crochet back into that same stitch. Always starting each round with 1 double crochet in that same stitch. Then you'll do 1 double crochet into the next stitch. I've got a little black thread there. So 1 double crochet into this next stitch. And then 2 double crochets into the next stitch. And that's the pattern repeat to increase for round 4. So you'll do 1 double crochet in this stitch, 1 double crochet in the next stitch, and 2 double crochets in the third stitch. And you'll repeat that all the way around, and I'll see you at the end. Okay, coming to the end of round 4, you can see you're starting to get a bit of a dome shape. So you'll finish this round by doing the pattern repeat, which is 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, and 2 double crochets. And you'll have a total of 40 stitches at the end of this round. So we'll join as before, skipping the beginning 2 chains and going into the top of that first double crochet into the top loop and back bump with a slip stitch. For round 5, chain 2 as before, and do 1 double crochet into that first stitch, and then you'll do 1 double crochet into the next stitch, and 1 double crochet into the next stitch, and then 2 double crochets into the fourth stitch. And that's the pattern repeat to increase for this round. So you'll carry on and you'll do 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet in those first 3 stitches, and then 2 double crochets into the fourth stitch. So repeat that all the way around, and I'll see you at the end. Now, if you are using the bulky yarn, the number 5 bulky yarn, the pattern is exactly the same. The only difference is what you're going to do is you'll crochet rounds 1 to 5, and you will stop increasing at round 5. With the gray one, we're going to do 1 more round of increases. For this, you'll stop at round 5 for increasing, and you'll begin the round 7 for the gray pattern, which is simply a round of 1 double crochet in every stitch all the way around. And you'll repeat that round for 5 more rounds for a youth small hat and 6 more rounds for an average adult hat. So at the end of the youth size, it would be at 6 1/4 inches, and for the adult size, it'll be just shy of 7 inches, and then we'll add the brim. Again, this is all in the description box below of the written pattern. So there'll be 10 rounds for the youth small and 11 rounds for the average adult, and then you'll go to the brim section. Now coming to the end of round 5, you'll have finished with your pattern repeat of 1, 2, 3, and then 2 stitches in the last stitch, and you'll have a total of 50 double crochets for this round. So again, keep the beginning 2 chains and join into the top of the first double crochet into the top loop and back bump with a slip stitch. For round 6, you'll chain 2. Now, if you wanted to make this for a youth or a child, you could stop increasing at this point. for the number 4 weight, and then you would follow the same pattern as if you're using the chunky yarn for an adult size. So, but we're going to carry on and make this for an average adult. So yarn over and do a double crochet into that very first stitch as before. Now we'll do 4 double crochets in a row before we increase. So that's 1, and this is 2, and just doing a double crochet into each stitch for 4 stitches. And then you'll increase into the 5th stitch with the 2 double crochets. So there's 1 and 2 back into that same stitch. So the pattern repeat for this round is you'll do 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, and then 2 double crochets into the 5th stitch. And you'll do that all the way around, and I'll see you at the end. Now coming to the end of this round, you'll finish up with the end of your pattern repeat with this, which is the 2 double crochets in the last stitch, and you'll have 60 stitches all the way around. So now going on to round 7, you'll skip those 2 beginning chains and join into the top of the first double crochet with a slip stitch. And so now we're going to stop increasing. So you'll chain 2, that still does not count as a stitch. And then you'll do 1 double crochet back into that same stitch. And then you'll do 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way around. And as always, going into the top loop and the back bump, just doing 1 double crochet in each stitch all the way around. Now I should have mentioned why we're crocheting into the top loop and the back bump is by going into the top loop, we're creating this nice ridge pattern. If we went just into the top loop only, because this is a hat, that stitch would stretch out quite a bit because the hat stretches on the head. By picking up the back bump as well, you're crocheting into 2 stitches, and that gives the hat more strength. So carry on doing a double crochet in each stitch all the way around, and I'll see you at the end. Now coming to the end of round 7, I've done my last double crochet in the last stitch, and we'll join as before, skipping the first 2 chains and joining into the top of that first double crochet and joining with a slip stitch. So you should still have 60 double crochets for round 7. And so now you'll just repeat round 7 for rounds 8 through 13. And I will see you at the end there. Welcome back. So I've just finished round 13, and this is giving me a total height from the top of the brim of just a little over 7 inches, like maybe 7¼ inches or 18 centimeters. If you were making this for a youth size, then you would have just 12 rounds for a total height of about 6½ inches, thereabouts. And then you can add the brim for that. And we're going to work on the brim next. So this is the technique that I use in the leg warmer tutorial to do the top cuff. And if you had a hard time seeing that in the tutorial, this is the point at which you could copy exactly what I'm going to do here. The only difference is the stitch count will be a little different. So this is the exact same technique. Now you're going to switch from the 6.5mm crochet hook to the 6mm crochet hook. I don't do this in the leg warmer tutorial, but you could go down for that tutorial if you like as well. So for the brim, we'll begin with a chain 3. In the leg warmer tutorial, it's a chain 4 because it's a bit wider for that one. And then you'll chain 1, and that's your turning chain. And for the leg warmers, it would be a total of 5 chains. Here we have a total of 4 chains. So you'll skip your turning chain. You'll go into the top loop of the first chain. You'll do a single crochet. and then going into the top loop, just picking up the one stitch of the next chain, you'll do a single crochet. And then into the third chain, the top loop only, you'll do a single crochet. So if you're doing the leg warmers, you would have 4 single crochets. Here we have 3. So here, this is the stitch that you're working out of. In the leg warmer tutorial, I say skip the stitch, but I think it's actually better now to slip stitch into it. So we'll slip stitch into the top loop and the back bump of the hat and do a slip stitch. And then you'll slip stitch into the next stitch, going under the top loop and the back bump, do a slip stitch. Then you'll turn your work, and what you have here is you have your 3 single crochets, and this is your first slip stitch here. So you want to skip that. You're always working into those 3 single crochets, and in the leg warmers it'd be 4 single crochets. So bring your yarn in behind your hook there, and then going into that first single crochet, going under the top loop only, you'll do a single crochet. And then you'll single crochet into the top loop of each single crochet down this little mini row. So you'll have 3 single crochets for the hat or 4 for the leg warmers. Chain 1 and turn your work. Then you have that V stitch, and you're working back down, not your turning chain, but into that first stitch into the top loop with a single crochet. And then a single crochet into the top loop of each single crochet all the way down for a total of 3 for the brim and 3 for the leg warmer cuff. So again, you have this stitch that you're working out of, you'll skip that and go into the next stitch, going under the top loop and back bump with a slip stitch, and then slip stitch into the next stitch as well. And then turn your work and tuck your yarn in behind your hook, skip that slip stitch, and single crochet back up your single crochets going into the top loop only. So you're just going to work that pattern all the way around the hat until you get to the other side. And you can see here how that's starting to create that bit of ribbing along the bottom. So go ahead, if you have to replay that to see how that works, you can do that, and I'll see you at the end. All right, so as you come around to this side, I'm just coming down this last row of single crochets, and what I have left is 1 stitch left here, and I'll just slip stitch into that, and then all you do is cut your tail, pull that out, and then take a darning needle and thread that on, and then you simply just stitch the seam together. There's no real magic way to do this. You can pick up 1 or 2 loops from each side of the end of those rows, and you're just going to stitch that using just a basic, this is actually a basic whip stitch, but you can sew this seam together any way you like. And you just want to make sure it's nice and secure at the bottom there. And see, you can't even tell that there's a seam there. And then you just go ahead and darn in that tail end. And then you also want to darn in this tail end. And remember, make a little knot here first before you darn it in if you did a magic ring, so it doesn't come undone. So I'll darn in my tail ends and I'll come back for the final reveal. All right, so here we are, 1 pattern, 3 different finishes. And so this here is the number 4 medium weight yarn, and this one does finish a little bit bigger than this one here. That's just the nature of the different weight yarns. If we'd added an extra round, an increasing round, or an extra round of just the double crochets, this hat would have been quite a bit bigger than this one. So if you'd use this exact same pattern for this weight yarn, you'd end up with a bigger hat, which might be good if you wanted to make this as a large hat. But what we have here is this one with a number 4 medium weight yarn. It finishes at exactly 8 inches or 20.5 centimeters by 10 3/8 or 26.5 centimeters. So that's good for a regular adult size, maybe a little bit on the larger side. This one here finishes at 7 3/4 of an inch or just 19.5 centimeters, and that is 10 inches or 25 centimeters. So just a slight difference in those. Then this here, being the youth hat, is quite a bit smaller. This one finishes off at, I'm kind of up on these hats. Lay this flat. So we're at 7 1/4 inches or 18.5 centimeters by 9 7/8 or 25 centimeters. So yeah, that's how the different yarns work up. And of course, the written directions for using the number 4 medium weight and the number 5 weight yarn are in the description box below. There's a blog post that has all the written directions there, so you can go there for some more information. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more creative and inspiring videos. And we'll see you next time.